your job is something where you can execute that specific job on the daily. You can give me results. You can make an email and it's pretty easy, or an SMS, and show me that you ran it. If you're just not doing your job, you're out.
Yeah.
So it's just a realistic view of like, it's not a charity.
Hey there, folks. Welcome back to the 10K Collective podcast for 6 and 7-figure e-commerce sellers, Amazon sellers. Mostly we focus on today, certainly for private label and custom product makers. We're talking today to Jake Rosenberg, who's actually, until recently, focused only on his direct-to-consumer sites. He's recently launched on Amazon. We don't discuss that today. We'll probably get him back in future to discuss that. But he's the creator of his own skincare brand. 30-second skincare is their tagline, and it's Crete.club, Krete .club, if you want the website, if you want to check it out while we're listening. And today we're going to talk about product development, because Jake is one of those people that not only ordered, I believe, 40 of his competitors' products and obsessively analyzed what was working, but then actually created his own skin care products at home, which is not always going to be an easy option, nor are we necessarily advising you to do that, but it shows how thoroughly this man takes product development. And I think there's a lot to be learned from this. Not least, the first lesson already implied is you got to be really, really thorough about this stuff if you're going to make a dent in a crowded market. But anyway, I'm going to let Jake tell his own story about this. Jake Rosenberg of Crete.club, a 30-second skincare company. Enjoy the show. So let's talk about the product development side. I mean, first of all, obviously, coming back to you had a personal reason for starting this brand based on your own personal experience. So what did you do next to actually start creating the skin? I mean, were you literally trying different skins at home, skincare products yourself, or what sort
Yeah.
of?
So if you couldn't tell, I'm a somewhat meticulous, and I build process. My strength is I build processes to get the answers I want pretty effectively and pretty quickly, and I execute on them pretty ruthlessly. So what I did was, first I looked at what company can make me these products. I knew about a few from my notes specifically, which was concealer, hyaluronic acid serums, and facial cleansers. Facial cleansers are different than soap. Soap is like specific chemicals makes you in the category of soap. Sometimes people are like, what's a cleanser versus a face wash? They are actually different chemistry. And, at the end of the day, they all clean your face, but in a different method. So I needed to use much more sensitive facial cleansers, and I needed to use specific types of concealer to just hide this, because this was crazy. It was like very visible from a mile away. And then the hyaluronic acid was to help the scar reduction. And then it turned out it just healed the rest of my skin issues and like dry skin and things like that. So I looked at places which are called contract manufacturers. I went to them and I went to formulators and I said, okay, what does it take to build these things? Please explain the chemistry to me, the process. And like, I need people who I'm going to work with to explain what they're doing to me in excruciating detail. So one, I know what's going on. And two, I know that they know what's going on, because so many people in the world you can work with are mediocre. And what is it? A professional is expensive, but an amateur costs a fortune,
Yeah, I
because
like that.
you will need to repeat stuff. You will have stuff that messes up. I mean, it even comes down to if they fill your bottles wrong at the end of the day. Any number of things can happen if you're not working with the best. So they told me be $20,000 to $25,000 to develop a product, and 12 months to get it to market, or 12 to 18 months. And I was like, that seems crazy. I develop stuff in a month usually. And then other places were like, well, we'll actually develop it for you in the same timeline, but for free, but we own the formula. So if you don't like us, if we do a bad job, you can never leave because we own the formula. You can go somewhere else and use a different formula. So I don't like either of those options. So I looked at the third option, which is kind of the ludicrous option, which is, okay, how actual advanced is this chemistry? Can I do it at home in my apartment? And so I looked into it, bought a lot of raw materials, bought some beakers off of Amazon, and I made 200 formulas and ended up with the hydrating facial serum and hydrating body serum that we have today. I tested them like crazy. Once I had the formula, I could go back to these places and say, hey, manufacture it with your epic machinery and all that stuff. But I actually sat down. It took me about a month and a half to 2 months to develop these formulas myself, because I was looking at it. I bought 30 products in each category. I tested them all. I put a spreadsheet of every single ingredient in a thing. I Googled it one by one what they did. I became very familiar with them. And then I basically mixed in various combinations the ingredients that I thought made sense and made the specific products work. If one was product was thicker than another, okay, what is it? Oh, well, product number like ingredient 1, 6, and 8 are thickeners. Okay, let me buy those and test them at 1%, 2%, 3. I did that for 2 months nonstop, and I ended up with 2 products that now we have a 0.3% return rate, aka nobody returns it. It works like crazy. We own the IP. I personally can formulate it if all shit hits the fan. I can formulate it if I needed to. And we have complete leverage over our contract manufacturers because it's our formula. I actually went in and trained them. So that is a very bizarre thing. Nobody in skincare basically does that unless you're like already a chemist or dermatologist. Even don't even do that. So
Wow.
I took a very different path, but I saved money, saved time, and I put myself in a position of having leverage where instead of leverage being had on me, which is not someplace you want to be as a startup.
Yeah. Wow. So you've done quite a radical path. I mean, literally radix meaning the root of the problem. You went straight to the root and went, right, what do you need to actually do? And can I do it myself? And the answer is yes. Now, I think it's worth mentioning because we, obviously had a conversation to flesh out this, what we're going to do in this podcast. And you've got a software development background and you were sort of comparing how contract manufacturing, at least in the skincare niche, works with software. So walk us through that. Because I mean, obviously not everyone's going to be able to emulate you, but they might be able to learn some of your concepts. So what was so different between
From
your industry and
software.
that? Yeah, well, tell me
Oh,
about both, because I assume ignorance on both parts. How does
yeah,
skincare industry work?
the two major differences that come to mind are the time period in which both industries are currently in. The skincare industry is stuck in like the 80s, like the manufacturing processes, the unbelievable bureaucracy and BS that you have to go through. Dr. Sales coordinator to get to the head of sales, to get to the head of business development, to have a marketing rep, to blah, blah, to finally talk to the chemist to make your thing, but he's not the guy that does. It's crazy. These places are like these corporate behemoths, and it takes forever to do anything. Like, you're not talking and I demanded at the actual contract manufacturer, I directly text, not email, I text the chemist who's making my stuff. "Hey, I have an idea. What if we use this ingredient?" He get back to me 2 seconds. If I didn't have that, I walked, which is why I interviewed 15 places that kinda told me, get get out of here. And the 16th place, which is amazing, said, okay, we're good with that. So that's the first thing is like, you have to understand that some industries are just backwards and coming in from a much more tech forward industry of software development. I didn't compromise what I knew was a better process. I didn't let the industry standard BS of the skincare industry stop me. One of the things I did that was crazy was say, okay, I understand what agile development is. Let me do that first chemistry. Again, the concealer, no chance I could do that at home. The serums, I figured it out. But that was the first thing. I had to look for 6 extra months for a contract manufacturing partner who fit the way I want to develop stuff. They can get me 10,000 units in 2 weeks. Every other contract manufacturer tells me 4 to 6 months. So I will never sell out. I have quality control. The guy tells me I can come into the lab anytime he can make new products. I can drive in today, surprise him, and watch them make my products. That is unheard of in the skincare industry. But you know what I do? I pay a little bit of a premium per unit, but we never have any issues. So that's one of the first things is I was coming from a more advanced industry that had much better business practices. The second one was physical goods versus non-physical goods. I mean, software, it's just like if you make an app in an app store, what does it cost you? 2 cents in server fees to have another user? It's very minimal. Whereas I have to make a physical product, get it into a physical fulfillment center, physically box it and ship it to you and pay a fulfillment fee. So physical goods versus non-physical goods are completely different. There's a third one, actually, I guess. Maybe it's like 3A and 3B, which is who's your customer? Is it a business to business or not? And then is it also a consumable good or a repeat purchase? One of the problems with a Casper mattress kind of company is how often do you buy a mattress? I don't remember the last time I bought my mattress. Actually, it was probably a couple of if I had to think hard, maybe 3 years ago, the time before that, 10 years before that. It's not a frequent purchase. Skincare, you buy it every month or you buy it every other month. Just like toothpaste, it's like body oil. When you run out of t-shirts or a nice suit, you don't buy every month. They don't run out. I mean, maybe it gets ruined, but it's not quite the same. So some kinds of software that you sell to companies, maybe it's on a subscription and whatever. Other kinds, like Uber, you pay when you use it. So you really have to look at the general business structure. And so for me, skincare was the perfect business because even though it's a physical product, which is the pain in the butt part of like fulfillment and manufacturing and all that stuff, it is a very small product. It is incredibly light to ship. It is incredibly easy to fulfill. The margins are huge. There's very low regulation. So like it was a great industry for all of that kind of for all those reasons.
Wow, so interesting. I mean, it strikes me that, like other successful entrepreneurs that I've interviewed on the show, that you were very radical in the sense that you completely kind of reinventing the approach to how to make a product in the first place in your industry. Now, that's not necessarily going to be for everyone, I have to say, but the people that are successful, I have to say, tend to be more radical like this. I mean, what you've done, I suppose, is you may have produced a somewhat different product from the consumer point of view, but I think what you've produced is a business that is radically different from your competitors, which means you can do things like not tie up the capital for 6 months whilst you wait for your first order of a new product, right? Because you just text the
Yep.
guy and say, add in a bit more of this gloop and get it to me, 4 weeks time, wherever it
Yeah.
is, right? So
But
that's a profound
that
change, I
happened
think.
last week. Like,
Yeah,
it
exactly. Wow.
you want to there are a lot of difficulties in running a business, and, one of the funny things I tell people, because I mentor a lot of people, and one of the things I tell them is, everyone should prepare for failure, like, make sure that you don't get sued by someone, make sure your terms of service are good and your privacy policy, make sure your products don't melt people's faces, whatever it is. Everyone understands those things, but you also have to prepare for success. What happens if tomorrow, like, Justin Bieber put a TikTok out because he somehow discovered we sold out? And then what would happen? That's a great problem to have, but that's a problem. We can't sell anymore for however long. Okay, well, I could call my guy and in about 2 weeks, we'd be back in stock versus months. You have to make sure that you're also preparing for successful situations. It's not just that inventory management is easier for me now. That's a nice thing. That probably saves me a couple hours a week. That's not that big a deal. What it is really is in the case of really good success, I know I can get 500,000 to 1,000,000 units, like 500,000 to 1,000,000 retail dollar value worth in 2 weeks made, like that with high quality. I can drive it and help him. I can inspect it. I can sit there in a chair and watch him. So it's trying to do that at every level. I'm a full-time developer. Why? We have a Shopify site because, there are bugs that happen and and Shopify messes up the checkout every once in a while. Things like that. And the second we can fix it, we have no downtime. The amount of sales we don't lose because we don't have bugs easily pays for that developer. So there's also preparing for those kinds of things. I'll tell you, it's much harder to do that. It is much easier to, go find a couple influencers, pay them a little bit, maybe try to white label a product, test it out here and there. But that's not really building a brand. That's not really building anything that will scale as well. And that's certainly not building something that will be acquired if that's your goal.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that I mean, and two points of honesty. One is that I came into the whole Amazon game in 2014. I was pitched into it as a sort of lifestyle income replacement kind of idea, which I think is a silly use of the vehicle. The vehicle can do many things, but most people are going to make serious money from this business when they sell the business, as we're implying, creating a sellable business. The other thing is that it was all about private labeling. And I think everyone should realize that pure private label is fairly dead at this point. I mean, I'm not entirely and utterly, but it's super hard to get anywhere. And I would just advise you not to bother. By the time you've dealt with, in your case, you got to deal with contract manufacturers, presumably in the US. I mean, if you dealt with Chinese suppliers and to the level that any of us who've been unfortunate enough to have to do that have, it's all a pain in the butt anyway. So you might as well go through the pain for something that you really believe in. And the other thing to say, which is interesting to me, is that talking of physical products in the sort of consumables niche, I'm recently been in talks with a contract manufacturer himself who wants to go into retail, and I'm happy dealing with that stuff on Amazon. I have zero wish to be the Jake of my industry. I don't want to create products. I want to go to that trouble, and I'm just not a product guy, and I know I'm not, so I'm not going to even pretend. And a lot of people out there aren't really that product centered, and I would urge them to find somebody who is. What are your thoughts on this one?
I am lucky that I can do some marketing myself. I can do some design myself, and it's my strength is in building systems, and sometimes that system can be an ad, sometimes that system is the packaging experience, sometimes that system could be the chemistry of the product itself. But yeah, there's a lot that I can't do. I don't code. I have a developer. I don't run ads on Facebook. We have someone to do that. I do know how to edit. I do know Adobe Premiere Pro, but it was taking all of my time to make our ads. So I hired someone, and I could hire them. You definitely need complementary people. I mean, I am lucky that I do enough things that kind of keep the core solid, but I've worked with partners before. One guy was raising money, and that was like 90% of his job in the company. It was great. I'd see a check for 100K come in. I'd be like, great. We now have blank months of runway for the 2 developers I want to hire and the designer I want to hire, who I'm going to manage, whatever. That guy had ideas and raised, that let me not have to go on a road show 24/7. I mean, that partner was like flying around the country, like meeting with people all the time. Like, it wasn't even glamorous. It sounds very glamorous, but it was like, no, it was very stressful. He'd have to walk into rooms with people who are like looking to say no and throw him out and try to get them to give him money. It's not
Right.
actually that fun. But yeah, there's also a philosophy I have that you cannot manage something you don't understand. And that is where a lot of entrepreneurs get just absolutely screwed, as in like catastrophic event, your company goes down. If you do not understand the basics of website design, you're going to hire someone and most likely going to give you something, looks good, and your website's not going to work. And if your website doesn't work, what do you even have? Like, you're let's say your ads are killing it, but they come to your website and it doesn't convert. You need every part of your funnel to do well. It's not that hard to like watch a webinar on email marketing enough to be competent to hire and manage an email marketer. Now, after a while, I probably bother them enough where I end up learning a decent amount of it because that's me. But yeah, it is a difficult thing. You have to constantly learn. I probably learn more right now per day than I did in college because I just have to. We're starting influencer marketing. I have to understand that enough to hire someone. I have to understand who owns the rights to the stuff. If you make a posting and we don't own the rights to it, do we own the organic rights or can we edit it ourselves? Do we have a license or do we own it? If we don't get that right and we like make an ad with your thing, an influencer could sue us. Okay, well, they could sue us for $1 million. Okay, there you go. There's the budget for next year's at like. You really have to just know enough to avoid catastrophic things and to hire the right people. But yeah, you can't do it alone.
Interesting. But I think nonetheless, I mean, so the point you're making is making me rethink with this thing that I need to go and, get a bunch of these products and try them out and educate myself more because I think you're right. I think you can't really market something if you don't understand it, which will be my issue with this, I'm the Amazon, face for this guy, not face, but the manager. But also, you're right. When it comes to things like the pains that I've seen and experienced myself, things like bookkeeping, I don't think everyone should do their own books, but I think you should be capable of doing it probably really, really badly, but you at
Yeah.
least understand enough to know what actually takes a long time and what's quite easy. And that's one of the other things, isn't it? If you're hiring somebody, should this be a $10,000 or $100,000 project, or should it be $100 job? I mean, that differentiation, I think, comes from having a sense of it yourself, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, for instance, the accounting thing is a perfect example because I hate it. I studied math and econ in college. You'd think accounting would be, I hate it. Like, I can't stand it. I do it. I almost do all of our taxes and then I send it to the accountant and make sure we're doing it right. But I need to know what a nexus in a state is. That means when and every state has a different threshold. In some states like Georgia or something, it's like if you sell 200 units a year or a month or something like that, you now have a tax nexus and you need to start collecting and remitting sales taxes and you need to file that you're going to do. It's like, okay, thankfully Shopify keeps track of those various nexuses. Other ones are you need to sell 200 units. And it has to be more than $100,000 a year in that state. So you don't hit that nexus necessarily at the same time as the other. So we're paying state taxes in like, I don't know, 15, 20 states. The other ones will probably pay soon. I just need to know what that concept is. I need to know that that section of Shopify exists, and I need to tell my accountant that. And then once a month, she asks me I just go in and I hit I should probably give her access to just so I don't have to deal with it anymore.
Yeah.
But
It
the
sounds
point
like
is like,
maybe, yeah.
I export an Excel sheet. But if I didn't know about taxes, oh my God, could you imagine if I was just operating in 20 states for a year or two, not paying or collecting state taxes? I don't even want to know they're governments. They're gonna own you. I don't know
Yeah.
how, but minimum fines. So it's those kinds of things. Like just be aware of the stuff that you have to do. And then now I spend 2 seconds on it. I check once a month. I have as my day one of the month. I check, okay, are we in any new nexuses? Oh yeah, 2 new states popped up. Copy, paste, send it to the accountant. Excel sheet takes me about 10 minutes,
Mm.
and I'm covered for that major catastrophic event of obviously not paying taxes.
So I guess if we're going to summarize more or less what you're saying, I guess it's like the CEO needs to have an understanding of every area of the business, but hopefully also, so you don't go mad, outsource to the specialist or, or get in-house, sooner or
Yeah,
later. Is that a sort of fair summary of your
that's
approach?
it. And I'm not sure if
Yeah.
that's CEO slash COO slash some other
So
C-suite
something. Yeah. Yeah.
founder. You know, the CEO isn't necessarily supposed to do all of those things. I just do. I
Yeah.
also have no idea what a traditional CEO role is. I just have always done it. And so
Yeah.
I'm like, well, oh yeah, okay. Well, today I had an idea for an ad yesterday and I just went into Sketch and I designed it. It took me an hour and a half. It was fun. And now we're running it. That's not a CEO role, but it's I don't know, it's something I decided to do because I thought it would be good, and to even explain to the ad to our designer would take me 30, 40 minutes, and I thought, "It's an easy enough ad, I'll just do it." So,
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't that, dance with small business? I guess owner operators is a sort of niche that I speak to, and I guess that when you're small enough, the distinction between CEO and COO, a, it can be artificial, but b, some people like yourself are just very meticulous, process-driven people, so they're going to be naturally drawn to operations. Some people, and I think I'm probably one of them, should admit that whilst I respect people who are good at operations, and I'm a huge believer in it, in the importance of getting it dialed in. I'm probably not the person to dial all of it in. I'm better working on somebody else's business to point out what's wrong and then saying, right, go and talk to your accountant, go talk to your product manager, go hire this graphic designer to get other people to clean it up. So you got to recognize what your strengths and weaknesses are. And so I suppose some people might outsource earlier than others, just depending on their
yeah.
personality, right? I think as long as somebody in your company is obsessed with being, having a handle on all of the major operations within the business, I think it's all good.
I would say that because I'm self-funded, I that's, like, probably half the job of a CEO is, like it's like vision of where we're going, and then raising money and making sure we can afford it, and
Yeah.
the CFO is probably in there too. Obviously, I do those things, but because I'm self-funded and we have profitable, I don't need to worry about a lot of the time suck things a CEO might. We're also small. We have 2 products launch. It's not like I have to say, "Oh, wow, okay, we're gonna do 90 things. Yeah, let's go on Amazon. Let's, like, grow that. Let's do the Vine programs and list these things. Okay, we have this great company doing it. I hired them. Okay, I just wait a week or 2 until they give me a report on what's going on." So, the real meticulous stuff, I would say that most of my job is COO role stuff, but that's just what it is when you're getting it off the ground. I mean, if we raise $10 million next month, yeah, I'm sure I'd have a C-suite of a couple people. My head developer would become my CTO, and he'd probably hire a couple people under him. But we just don't need that at this point. That's another thing is, like, we hire insanely slowly and fire very quickly. And that is just the advice that I have been given by an unbelievable number of successful people. It is that everything is people. Every single thing is people. My developer, he doesn't just code our website. He comes up with animations. He comes up with new ideas. He understands Google Analytics. He will give me good surprises all the time of like, hey, I actually thought of this new way that we could offer a thing to capture more emails, and I built a version of it here. Check it out. I'm like, oh wow, okay, great. So we're 6 or 7 people, but we operate like we're 30 because they're the right people. There's no bloating. There's not going to be any layoffs if there's a downturn in the economy with us. There's in fact we're hiring more people now. So that's one of the things. And then when email marketers, we've had some issues with email marketers of terrible communication, non-execution. I give them a week of that, and if they just like do not pick it up, I go, okay, well, like I'm giving you a harsh conversation. You have one more week to show me because your job is something where you can execute that specific job on the daily. You can give me results. You can make an email, and it's pretty easy, or an SMS, and show me that you ran it. If you're just not doing your job, you're out.
Yeah.
So it's just a realistic view of like, it's not a charity. Like, if I'm going to pay you money out of my own pocket, you need to do the job I
Oh, yeah.
need to get done for the business to be successful.
Yeah, I have a bad habit of hiring fast and then trying to manage hard. And yeah, I think not that I've hired many people over my business career, but yeah, when it's your own money, you can get a bit too personal. I find I have to try and remember that I'm British because part of me, I don't have any German heritage that I know of, but I've spent a lot of time there, and part of me gets very Germanic and very direct. And I have to stand back from there and go, try to be nice, but by the same token, I think having
I'm
high
nice, I'm
expectations is good.
Californian. Yeah,
Yeah.
just be friendly and Californian. Hey man, this is great. Here's a list of our exact expectations. Let's do a trial run of 2 weeks.
Hmm.
It's 2 weeks in. Hey man, you didn't meet any of them.
Yeah.
See ya. In a nice
Yeah.
way. But like, it's
Yeah.
not mean. It's like I said you need to do A, B, C, and D, and you literally only did A. And it's
Yeah.
like, I don't oh, I could have been clearer. It's in writing to you. We had
Yeah.
conversation, we had screen shares. So from and then you know what? Most of the people who even get to a trial went through the ringer with me,
Yeah.
but nobody quits. I haven't had, like, anybody quit because once I find the right people, it's a perfect match. They want me to be, like, constantly challenging their work because I tell them to constantly challenge mine, and that's the way we end up getting great results and why we win as a company, and at the end of the day, if you're winning as a company and you're not nice to people in the process, because challenging does not mean mean, it just means like, "Hey, so you built this thing, why'd you build it? Okay, cool, well, how are you gonna track its performance?" Like, you just ask them to make sure that what they're doing is real. And they have to explain it. And one of my, I don't know how to, what is it, a value, I guess, is that I need to personally be able to explain everything I'm doing all the time. It's just like a personality thing, which is why I can be incredibly thorough when you ask me questions because I've thought about every single thing we're doing as a company before we go and execute it. And I've most likely dragged my team into some calls and conversations about it. So at least we have some smart people who've said, yeah, this should work or could work, or that's a good way to test it if you try this.
Yeah. I like it. And what's very clear about you is that you have a very clear vision for the company, a very clear way of doing things, which is great. So I think if somebody wanted to work for you, having even listened to this podcast, I mean, if you're hiring, we could put that out there. But joking apart, I think they know who they were getting. They know that you're meticulous. They know that you care about operations, that you're going to have your finger in all the pie. So they want somebody who's very hands off boss and relaxed and just away in the clouds, dreaming up marketing ideas. They'd absolutely hate it. And if they want somebody who's gonna
Yeah,
be hands-on and very involved, they'd love it. And, so I think
there's a
you're very,
balance
very
though.
clear. It's very interesting.
Yeah, that's I just set clear expectations. I do in my personal relationships too. Like my friends have been friends for life. My girlfriends are with like long-term relationships because I don't spend more than a week or 2 with people who I don't enjoy getting, the situation with them. But also, if I find someone, you have to understand the type of work they're doing. A lot of times my developer, we will have an intense conversation on a Sunday, a Monday, a Tuesday, whatever it is, and then we'll know exactly what he goes to build, and they'll be like, "Okay, go build it. Just ping me when you have something to show me." And that might be 3 days later, that might be 6 days later. I don't even message him. I know who he is, I know he's responsible, I know he's working on the thing. I know he might, like, need to take a day off on a Tuesday because some people, maybe he's tired, maybe he needs to go running. Whatever it is, I just know that this guy who I've worked with for 6 years always delivers, so he knows what needs to get built. Go build it, man. And so it's actually far more liberating because when you give people free time but no direction, that's, like, scary. What am I gonna do? What if I don't deliver something? Is my boss gonna fire me because 'cause I'm never delivering stuff because I have no direction? People don't like that. They want direction, they want clarity, they wanna know what they're trying to build, or at least the goal, not necessarily the path there. That might be their job to find the path. But then you have to give people the time to actually go and execute it. I do that with my ads guy. Sometimes I'm like, uh, you know, sometimes we're messaging and talking for 3 hours a day back and forth because that's required, like, we're reviewing ads, we're reviewing footage. Sometimes I don't talk to him for 3 days in a row because he's going and just editing, and editing is not a thing where I should be pinging him in the middle of it, it'll distract him. So it's not like I'm a micromanager as far as the time. I'm a micromanager as far as, like, process and results.
Yeah, nice. Micromanage process and results, not time. That's a very, very good distinction. I like that. Well, look, if you got another, say, 10 minutes, I'd love to talk to you a bit more because you're obviously a man who's very into the weeds of everything, including the product development, which is possibly more unusual in the realm of, well, most physical products, since you actually kind of built your product, as it were, or formulated it yourself at home. So How do we get, so I've got some notes here to how to get faster product development, better quality and price. Now we've already talked about faster, one approach being that you simply refuse to accept the norms of your industry and shopped around vigorously until you found somebody who would be faster. So that's one thing we've dealt with. How do we deal with other ways of getting faster product development? Faster, better, cheaper, the old SaaS or software pitch, really, isn't it? How do you try and achieve?
Well, to go back to one of the points that I'll kind of expand on, the answers that you're looking for are oftentimes out there. It just might be like 30% of an answer from this source, 30% from this source, 40% from this source. So for instance, just the chemistry. Yeah, I took a lot. I bought 20, 30 products, whatever it was, and tested them all, the serums, and figured out that. But I also was looking at their packaging. I was looking at their size. I was looking at the labels that were on them. Were they custom printed on the plastic? Was it glass with a waterproof label? If it was that, was it matte? Was it glossy? Was it scratch resistant? Again, the size of the products, what type of pump, was it a dropper? Was it a pump? If it was a pump, how much came out? The answers were there. When you bought 30 products, when I bought 30 products, 2 of them had pumps that I was like, "I love these." That was it. Okay, there we go. Well, I'll use that pump. The other ones, it's like, "Oh, glass feels more expensive. It's better for chemistry because, like, things don't, like, interact with glass, so it doesn't, like, erode. Amber looks more expensive, and the glass is and the light gets through less, so it'll keep the product safer from UV rays and light, which degrade it over time and give it a shorter shelf life. Longer shelf life de-risks inventory because you can sell it for longer." And it was like, okay, it wasn't just the one answer I got. I got a lot of answers by ordering those 30 products. Like, and so that's another thing. If you're if you see some competitors doing something you like, order their products. First of all, I won't necessarily condone this, but you can always return them, test them out, take some videos, write detailed notes, especially if it's on Amazon, return them. I mean, your competitors, you don't necessarily have to be nice to them. Although I like to keep them for reference, so I don't actually do that. But it's funny. Sometimes you can ask for return just to see their return process and see what they actually offer in their customer service emails, which I always think is very funny. But that's the kind of key. If you're building a, course, whatever, go look at other courses. Look at what they actually entail. Like, the answers are out there. When you want to develop a website, go look at your favorite websites. What are they doing? Are they having big blocks of color? Are they having crazy animations? Is it simple? How many words are on the screen? How many, like, do you scroll once before you start seeing any numbers about the pricing? When you click on a button, what does it do? Does it light up? Does it do nothing? How fast is it look? Like, you can get answers from stuff out there. It's that would be my biggest thing, is that you don't need to reinvent the wheel. What you need to do is, like, take a section from 30 other wheels and make your own.
So
That's
I've probably been listening to too much Arthur Conan Doyle recently, but Sherlock Holmes industry. But it reminds me of like Sherlock Holmes conversations with Dr. Watson. They look at the same thing, and then Sherlock Holmes says something like, "Well, Watson, it's extremely obvious what we need to do, doesn't it?" And Watson says, "I'm so sorry, Holmes.
yeah.
I can't see anything." So I guess what you do is you see things maybe a bit differently from people. But to your point, I guess one of the things you're simply saying is, sorry, camera death
I
here.
mean, you just call me Sherlock Holmes, and I'll take it. I'll thank you. Appreciate
Yeah,
that.
yeah, but I mean, I suppose I sometimes I'm feeling like the Dr. Watson here, thinking, well, okay, you bought a load of competitive products and you saw a bunch of implications of it's amber, therefore, UV ray reduction, and it looks more expensive, and so therefore that can push you towards amber glass and glass versus plastic. So, what do we need to do then in order to be able to learn from the environment that we're in? Because I guess you're saying the answers are out there, but then that implies that you can see the
Mindset.
answers.
It's a mindset, because when you use a product that you love it. It's like that stuff is happening subconsciously. When you pick up this is close to me, an Xbox controller, you go, "Oh, it's nice. It's black." If this was pink, I wouldn't have the same reaction. If the buttons, when I press them, weren't as nice, if the bumpers were worse, it was the closest product I have. Here's a candle. Okay, it's nice. It's black. It's glass. It's shiny. Maybe there's a contrast of the colors. You just need to put yourself in the mindset of, like, "Oh, let me just break down what are the elements of this thing. How does it look? How does it smell? It smells nice. Well, yeah, candles are supposed to, but how strong is it? Is it super strong? Is that?" You just have to get the kind of categories of the variables you need to understand. And that's just like looking at it. I can pick this candle up and be like, oh, wow, this is really great. It smells nice. That's all the customer is supposed to think about. But as the manufacturer of this, they need to think about, why is it this tall? Why is the clear glass this and not here? There's just a lot of implications and things you can think of that make things look and feel in a certain way and perform a certain way and have the customer experience them in a certain way. And if you just get a bunch of products and look at them, it's not rocket science. You probably have to like practice to make sure you don't miss some things here and there. But I do this with people. I make them pick up a product and I just tell me everything. Break down why you like that thing. And then they'll be like, well, it smells nice. I'm like, is that all you have to say about the smell? And they're like, well, yeah. I was like, well, why does it smell nice? How potent is the smell? When you burn it, does the smell like take up the whole room or is it concentrated? How big is the flame? Like, I'm just thinking these things off my head. It's really just A to Z, the customer experience with the product. And again, do that with a website, do that with your competitors' ads. They're all on an ad library. Facebook, TikTok, they have ad libraries. Go watch your competitors' ads. In the first 3 seconds, do they go like, hey, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, all of this competitors' ads are doing it. And you see that they've been running this ad for 3 months. That means it works and they're putting money behind it. Maybe you go record something where some guy does something into the camera. You know, it's all out there. It's just a matter of breaking it down, understanding it, and kind of redoing it for yourself in your own context.
Yeah. Again, I can't help feeling a bit like Watson with Holmes here, but yeah, I think you have a certain
I've only been
knack for
doing this for
breaking
like
things down.
12 years. Like, I don't
Yeah,
know.
that may
It's
be what it
all
is.
I
I mean,
do.
you
It's
got
my
instinct.
sport. This is my
Interesting, but, nevertheless, I think, we can learn from these things. I guess this level of meticulousness is one thing I'm taking away from you, breaking things down and ordering, by the way, the level of commitment, ordering 30, 40 competitive products.
Yep.
You're, like, really into that thing if you're ordering 30, 40 products. I just had a conversation with a client where he was about to order a load of stuff from China. I said, "Okay, so have you bought competitive products and tried them out? And have you tried your sample out?" And I'm going to put this without revealing categories. I want to respect confidentiality. So here's a sort of accessory product that goes with the main thing. And it turns out he doesn't own the main thing. And I said, okay, can you borrow one from a friend? And he just sent me an email today saying he bought the main thing and he's bought 3 competitive products. I'm like, that's a kind of start. I mean, 30 is more obsessive.
I
And I
mean,
think
look,
that,
here's
yeah,
the thing, 30 is crazy, but then
yeah,
again, like, probably ordered 5 and I was like, "Okay, well, there's more out there." I think you do things in stages. You never wanna overexpose yourself. I don't wanna go and spend 2 grand on skincare products only to realize, like, the first 2 that I ordered were the right ones. So I just, and it is very annoying. It is very annoying to be this thorough. It is sometimes terrible. It's an unbelievable burden, but here's the thing, it solves all of my future problems because we end up with products that are great that don't get returned that work. We end up with the best packaging. We end up with like, let's say we had done clear plastic instead of dark, amber glass. Plastic could have had a negative interaction with our products. It doesn't, but it could have. Clear, maybe people the behavior is they leave it on in their bathroom next to the window and it just degrades, so it has a year shelf life instead of 2, which is bad for us and bad for the customer. Maybe plastic is cheaper, so our $39 price point, which is not cheap, just doesn't feel justified because it's like this and plastic is $39. They're like, because we made amber glass, we just don't have that problem. We don't have any of those problems. And so that's one of the things that I'll do is I will trade away my time, effort, and energy now to solving future problems. Because then once you have something that works, it just works. We're going to be selling this facial serum for the next 20 years, 50 or whatever, until we're all living in the simulation or whatever it is, until
yeah,
skincare is irrelevant.
yeah,
Because I went through all of that stuff. I went through all of that with our concealer pen. I tested 30 pens. The way this clicks, where's the microphone? I don't know if you hear that.
yeah.
I tested and heard. I was like, "Ooh, which click feels the best?"
Wow. Attention to detail. I love it. If you're going to create a premium product, unlike the number of people who said to me, I wanted to create a premium brand or sort of on price higher than everyone else, which is effectively, I suppose on Amazon, it's such a price comparison site, even worse than
Yeah.
when I sell on Shopify and getting in the Google SERPs or the Google shopping results, right? But yeah. And then they say that they've bought no competitive products. I'm like, okay, so you're going to need to, as Tim Ferriss put it in the for our work week, price high and justify, you've got to have that reason why people are going to buy. And it's got to actually reside in the product. And then your marketing shouts about it, in my opinion, because of this reviews thing. Again, particularly on Amazon. I mean, you can get away with things to some degree outside of Amazon to some small degree, I guess, as a Shopify story, and you probably tell not much. But yeah, it's I think that the way you're going with this, just again, there's a pattern that emerges here from my interviews and from my knowledge of my clients who meticulousness about these things just seems to be
I don't know any
one
other
of the
way.
things. Yeah.
It's lucky that it's my personality. It's quite stressful sometimes.
You're a very thorough chap, but we ought to let you get back to running your business. Jake, it's
That
been a real pleasure to talk to you. You're a man of great passion for your business, for your product, and an example to us all. Quite humbling level of detail that you go into. So I guess you don't have that, million and one, courses to sell people or anything like that yet. But if people want to reach out to you, you mentioned that you do mentoring for people,
okay.
or if they want to check you out, Crete brand, where do they get?
So you could email me at Jake, Jake at Crete, Krete.club, CLUB, or our website is Crete, Krete.club, CLUB, not .com, .club. We kind of have like a subscription situation. So that's like the Crete Club, and you get a lot of perks and things if you join. But yeah, we have 2 products right now. They're selling like crazy. We just like a week ago, thank God, got like a ton more inventory in because we were about to sell out. And to me, selling out, some companies are like, "Oh, we like to brag about it." I'm like, "That sucks. We can't make money in those days." So for all intents and purposes, we were about to sell out. But yeah, Jake at Crete.club. I answer questions all the time. I get random emails. I mean, no one's going to challenge my business because I tell you how we do our email marketing in like an email that takes me 2 minutes to write, but it could really help some other entrepreneur. And, it's kind of like paying it forward or paying it back. I don't paying it somewhere.
Paying in some way. Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. Well, like that's a very generous offer. So if somebody emails you, presumably they need to be somebody who's already got a sort of established business or something like that, or
Not
would you work with people?
necessarily.
Oh,
I mean, I've built 4 businesses from the ground up and I've helped tons of people. I've helped people who are like, I have a 9 to 5 and an idea. Like, how do I actually start the idea? And like,
mm,
sometimes the answer is that's not the greatest idea. Your 9 to 5 is paying you well and you have kids. Like,
yeah.
maybe the security of your job is actually the correct thing. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Willing to have a
I
real
give that
conversation.
advice more than the like, Gary V's or like quit and grind and live in your cars kind of stuff. Sometimes it's like I like
Yeah.
some stuff that kind of grind mentality has, but other stuff it's like it can be a little toxic sometimes. Sometimes reality is this is insanely hard. I do it 24/7. I live and breathe this, and I have to be acquiring skills for a decade in order to run this successfully. Sometimes that's the answer. But,
Yeah. Well, that's true. Well, thank you for the willingness to be honest. Well, look, Jake, it's been a real pleasure to talk to you. Jake Rosenberg of Krete. Go check out Crete.club to see how a beautifully put together e-commerce site with the really clean, clear marketing promise is done as well.
so
And been a real pleasure to talk to you. Above all, your philosophies of business and product development, meticulousness and thoroughness, real example to us all. So, Jake, thank you so much for coming on the show.
appreciate it. Thanks for having me.